Hey everybody, welcome to this month's town hall. I had a different agenda not one day ago, but things have changed and there is a lot to discuss today. So the major item that we're going to talk about today is going to be the CMMC status update of the program, of the different phases, essentially what came out yesterday. So we're going to review the phase 2 update, what that does, how that changes the rollout of CMMC. We're going to talk about what stays the same, what you should do. There is also going to be the discussion of the FAR CY rule, just as a note to dovetail what's happening with the Department of War and also what's going to be happening with the FAR. And we'll also talk about, just from a NeQter standpoint, upcoming events and of course general Q&A. But I really think that everyone's going to want to talk about this today. So that's what we're going to cover. So for CMMC Phase 2 update, it's been paused. The term that the DOW has used is suspends the requirements for Phase 2. So what that means is, and actually let me reshare this so it's a little bit larger. Yeah, that's much better. There we are. Much better. So, didn't mean to get caught up there. So the Phase 2 has been paused. So moving forward, they'll be putting a hold on C3PAO assessments as a condition of contract award. And that was supposed to happen on November 10th, 2026. So that rollout has been halted. So essentially, an extension of Phase 1 has happened. Current contracts with CMMC Level 2 requirements from a C3PAO standpoint or a Level 3 standpoint will be amended to remove that requirement. I'm unaware of what contracts those are or how many there were, because there wasn't really supposed to be any that had them at this time. However, as I talked about in months prior on the town hall, the key word that was being used was discretion. So there was discretion of that they put in there for contract officers to potentially include Level 2 certed or C3PAO requirements in current contracts. So if any contracts have those in there, they're going to be stripped. They're going to be pulled back. Additionally, and one thing to note, and Corey is on the call with me. So we, because this is so important, we took this the slide deck. We're going to make this available. We're going to drop this in the chat and send it out. So in terms of, I think you provided the slide link. I would say that the PDF would be best, just because the slide deck changes from month to month. So just as a comment.
I copied it over. I can.
Oh, okay, good. All right,
into
very good.
Live Store.
Yeah. So the context, and I've changed the title. So if anyone wants to use this internally, for your teams, for your companies, change some things to strip out any specific to NeQter stuff, so that you can share as needed. So thank you, Corey. So and there's links to the Department of War release and other resources that they provided. So to sum up this page here, phase 2 paused. November 10th is no longer going to be that initiation point for the rolling out of phase 2. Any current contracts with level 2 asserted requirements in them, they're going to be pulled. Any level 3 requirements in any current contracts going to be pulled. So additionally, they instituted a 60-day review process of the program. But what this means is they're standing up a CMMC reform task force, is what they're calling it, aimed at evaluating the program and ensuring it's aligned with the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth's ATS or Acquisition Transformation System Directives, which was a document that came out a couple months ago. Like a 50-page PDF outlining new initiatives and streamlining and all that stuff there. And per the website, the DoD CIO website, level 3 documentation referencing it has been pulled. So unsure of what that means for that. In terms of this presentation today, I'm going to try to just report on what has happened, what is showing up online, what has been officially released, and because there's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of guesstimations of what certain things mean, or what departments influenced what, or Congress, or primes, or SBA. So I'm not going to get into any of that because it's not concrete. What we have concretely is the releases, is the statements, is the updated timelines, and all that there. So additionally, and I'm going to be pretty light on this because I don't know its significance. I don't know what it particularly covers, but there was something at the footnote or at the bottom of the released statement, which gets into it's being labeled brilliant at the basics, was something that the DoD CIO put. They have a page for it. So it's a new campaign by the Department of War Chief Information Officer, the CIO, initiative dedicated to empowering the defense industrial base to secure their networks. It has basically a top 10 of IT and OT security or cybersecurity best practices, including phone scanning and asset inventory and continuous monitoring and some other things. It just I'll put a little opinion here. Seems a little slapped together and maybe could have been part of another release, not tied to CMMC, because this has also caused conjecture and comments and things like that. So just to kind of turn back the page, look at the CMMC rollout and how this has changed. So over the years, and there's been many of us, myself included, doing this for years and years. We've been looking at the same rule sets, SP 800, NIST SP 100-171 Rev 2. It's been around forever, so we've been dealing with it forever. With CMMC 1.0, interim final rule came out in 2020. It's already been 6 years. This September, 2.0 was announced after a year in 2021. The 32 CFR rule was drafted 2023 and was put into effect in December of 2024. The 32 CFR outlined the rollout, outlined the program. Basically, the 32 CFR was the formal architecture of the program, the role of the assessors, the general oversight structure, and went into effect in December 2024. Then, of course, the 48 CFR rule was published as final in the Federal Register last year in September, and that formally integrated CMMC into the acquisition process and went into effect again on September. So this started the deployment of the rollout that was spelled out in 32 CFR. So started November 10th of last year with phase 1, which was self-certification of CMMC and reinforcing SPRS and all that, which I'll get into shortly. And then November 10th of this year was supposed to kick off Phase II. And then the phases were supposed to come out basically every November 10th anniversary, rolling out until 2028. Now, I had several presentations, several summary and rehashes of the phase breakdown in months prior, but just to kind of reiterate what the phases included, Phase I was all self-certed with the discretion to include a C3PAO L2 certifications under the discretion of contract officers. Again, with this update, those are going to be stripped out. So Phase I, none of the contracts were going to have or were supposed to have C3PAO certified requirements. Phase II, starting this November, rolling for 12 months, was supposed to include some contracts to have C3PAO certification requirements. Phase III, you're following that, was supposed to be most, and then Phase IV was supposed to be all. So by November of 2028, or we're supposed to see all required, all contracts that needed to have it would have a required C3PAO certification for L2. And then, of course, there was different markers for level 3, when that would show up, when that would kick off. Again, all of that's been put on pause. So the existing requirements, just want to rehash what we have from an existing standpoint. So this was clearly stated in the release. All Phase I self-assessment requirements remain firmly in place. Additionally, during this interim period, the department will enforce cybersecurity compliance with the NIST SP 100-171 Rev 2 standard through self-assessments and select government-led assessments, focusing on tangible cyber hygiene rather than administrative overhead. Again, there's been a lot of conjecture about overhead and cost, and again, why the timing of things, especially there's a lot of macro, right? There's a lot of worldwide events happening. People point to that. But ultimately, you're still required to adhere to NIST 100-171 Rev 2 and have a score submitted within SPRS. What is still within contracts is going to be DFARS 252-204-7012, which requires every defense contractor and subcontractor to safeguard covered defense information, report cyber incidents within 72 hours. It also requires flow down. The DFARS 252-204-7019 and 7020, which a lot of people are familiar with, unfortunately, with the FAR overhaul in Feb 1 of this year, Feb 1, 2026, they changed the numbering. They wanted to make things more, quote unquote, efficient and streamlined, and combine requirements or renumber them. So if you look up 7019, if you look up 7020, technically they're not there because they've been renumbered. So I wanted to just include that in case you go to look for that, or you go to look in contracts and it's not there. It's because the number has changed. Can't keep things simple. They gotta keep changing stuff. So that's still those are still required, which means SPRS current scores will continue to be a requirement. So you still have to update, annually the score in SPRS, self-certify that you're adhering to the CMMC level 2, which of course is the NIST 100-171 Rev 2 requirements, or 171A, which ties to the CMMC level 2 assessment guide. So Department of War will still conduct DIBCAC assessments. Those are still happening. That's going to still be their mechanism for auditing the DIB. regardless to the pause of the CMMC rollout. So basically, DIPCAC's still going to be doing its thing. You can still get a call, still get an outreach that says, hey, we're auditing you. We're assessing you against NIST. We're assessing you against Cell 2. What's paused is C3PAO certified requirements being instituted in the next phase. And also what will still be continuing is the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is still going to be continuing its campaign of False Claims Act violation cases against companies that are, lying or misrepresenting their posture of cybersecurity in SBRS, and they're still settling. I'm trying to think. At this point, the settlements have all been. It's all been settlements. It's all been out of court. Not many, if none, have gone. Have elected to go through formal court proceedings and what have you. Usually it leads to settlements. So those are still happening. And of course, the ones that have hit the news, the ones that have happened, are all predicated on the 7019 and 7020 requirements, right? There has been any false claims acts related to certed requirements because they technically haven't rolled out yet. And that's what's been paused or suspended with the phase rollout. So that all stays the same. I was able to borrow this slide from my good friend Dan Akeridge over at Summit 7. So he's kind of broken down, and I will break down again what I've been iterating the past few minutes, dealing with phase 1, phase 2, and everything else that is currently required. So the original timeline was going to be dealing with November 10th to November 9th, 2026 was phase 1. Phase 2 was supposed to kick off November 10th and continue to November 9th, 2027. So phase 1 is still happening. But what's been suspended and is TBD is now there's a 60-day program review, which essentially means phase 1's been extended. 7020, 7021, as I just mentioned, still active for CMMC. Supply chain flow down requirement is still required per NIST, the NIST DFARS requirements and CMMC. Self attestation requirement still required for CMMC level 2, again, which ties directly into NIST 800-171 Rev 2. Previously, the C3PAO certified requirement was at Department of War's discretion under phase 1 and phase 2. That's been delayed until the program review happens. For CMMC level 3, again, I'm trying to think of any of the clients or people we've talked to that maybe one or two have needed level 3, but the vast majority that didn't really apply. But again, that's been delayed. Per your existing DFAR 7012 incident reporting requirements, those are still in play. You're still required upon detection to report within 72 hours. And when it comes to cloud providers or the providers that you're using for your program, they still need FedRAMP moderate, authorized or equivalent. And then, of course, there's the other requirements that you may have regarding ITAR or CUI specified, and you need to use the appropriate clouds for that. So he also included this column here regarding the FAR. I'll get into that a bit later, but that the year kicked off with the announcement that progress was happening for the FAR CUI rules. So a lot of different things happening with different agencies, but purpose of the call today is mostly to talk about the Department of War or the DoD. So I see that there's a couple questions. So I'll just answer them now before I proceed. What is your source stating the following? Current contracts with CMMC Level 2 requirements in them, all solicitations and contracts that already carry an L2 C3PAO or Level 3 C3 DIPCAC requirement will be amended to remove that requirement. That is specifically in the announcement. Let me just it's either within that direct it should be within that direct DoD CIO announcement, the or the release. There's was additional chatter from the Undersecretary of Acquisition, where they further clarified there's been a couple news bulletins or news articles where they further clarified that, but that should be stated within the release. That is where so all solicitations and contracts that already have it, yes, those should be dialed back. Let me just see real quick if I grab the link. Right here. So I just want to make sure that if I'm mentioning something that it is within the materials that I am referencing. Self-assessment, critical, So that's a good catch. So I will get the article. There was an article that yeah, so that's a good catch. Thank you for that question. So it's not within this I'm just glancing quickly. It's not within this release here. There was a so look to grab it before this call is over. There was an additional article where they stated that those would be removed. So I'll grab that. But good catch. So yes, it's not within here, but that was mentioned by the undersecretary that was being amended. So I will grab that. But let me just continue here. And Corey, actually, while I am yeah, let's see. A couple people I think have posted in the chat. Here, implementing suspension phase 2. So that's the dude. Corey, if you could look up that article, that would be helpful.
Yeah, look it up.
Yeah, while I'm reviewing.
And Jordan, I'm not aware of any user limits for Livestorm. I can double check though.
Yeah. So, and appreciate everyone kind of bearing with me. This came out. Fortunately, they didn't do it on a Friday. I mean, if they did do it on Friday, I'd have more time to put this together. But they came out end of yesterday, and trying to as quickly and accurately combine all of the different information.
Did you want to answer John's question or what as well? Sorry.
Yeah. I'm going to say so that's kind of gets into what I'm going to cover next. That is a personal that is a company decision. If I mean, I've seen a lot of people carry through or decided, you know what, I want to get that cert. I want to have a third party recognition that I have accomplished this rather than relying on self cert. We've gotten this far, might as well get it. Or also, companies where it is, they imagine or assume that, this is a delay. And if, at the end of the 60 days, things, some things will probably definitely change, or, I would imagine with the timeline, if they're going to be putting if they're coming out and doing this, or the pushback that they've gotten from different agencies or influences. So, um, however, a lot of people are like, you know what, this has been 10, 15 years in the making. It will remain in some form or mostly the same. So I might as well, instead of injecting time or injecting a hiccup, I'll just, continue. Um, that that's definitely a good, course of action. If you've want to demonstrate maturity and continue. However, as a business decision, if you want to say, you know what, let us wait 60 days and continue, um, later once we know more. That's kind of, that's also a, there's no right answer right now. I'll just fully admit that's where we're at. Um, in terms of kind of what I wanted to talk about, what should you do? Um, I think that the best indication, or the bellwether for what is going to take place or where the industry is going to continue to go, is going to be directed by the primes. Um, the A lot of the urgency, or a lot of the focus for the past six to 12 months since the phase 1 rollout has been pushes from upstream vendors, really locking down their supply chain, making sure that a supplier isn't going to be the reason that they miss out on a contract or uh, increase their risk profile, right? So, prime contractors have been enacting deadlines for their supply chains to be compliant and get C2PO certified. As of now, again, unless your prime sends a clarifying action, so I would look at the next couple of weeks. um, those deadlines still apply. If you're more of yourself in the prime or subprime category, this is going to be you reaching out to your contract officer to understand what their contractual obligations are, and what they're going to expect of you. They might say, well, the chatter from my department or the chatter from this contract vehicle is that, no matter what, we're staying the course. The dialogue needs to happen between you and your contract officer, or your upstream, client, or a program manager, to inform you of, hey, what are we doing? What would we like to do? What should we do? um yeah, I guess it depends. And again, I know a few people that are like, you know what, we put so much time and effort, and we want the cert, we just want it. So again, it's going to be a business decision. If you have that momentum, if you have that inertia, I would recommend going through with it. Unless, of course, again, from a business decision, if you can, if you scheduled an assessment and it's, 50K, is that 50K better spent on something else right now, or it's already committed and you got to go through with it? Again, that it's going to be a case by case basis. Again, a lot of companies see it as a market differentiator, that you're proving, hey, we're not just self-certed, we're not just saying we're doing it, we are doing it. Here's the proof. So it's going to be case by case. Um, um, so there's a comment from Sean, just to clarify, should say, um, so they are still ongoing, and you can still. So that's actually the next point. Oh, I thought I had that as a point. I apologize. Yeah. So this in no way affects the C3PAO marketplace or the ability of C3PAOs to perform assessments and provide certs. It's an independent process, through the Cyber AB um, to to perform this, to to do these things, and the only mechanism that's changed is the Department of War, or from the DoD, saying, "Hey, we are putting a stay on the Phase II kickoff." That's basically been the kind of the major thing, or the official thing that's changed. Essentially, the Department of War saying, before we were going to say Phase II is coming out, and we can now our initiative or our goal is to put C3PAO certed requirements for specific contracts, right? They were going to pick certain contracts and start the process. They always had that lever of discretion to start it early or delay it. Now this is more of an emphatic and official declaration of, hey, instead of us using those release valves of delaying through what was rolled out in 32 CFR, we're saying we're suspending, we're delaying those requirements starting to show up in contracts. Again, from a conjecture standpoint or from a news bulletin standpoint, there's been a lot of right in the news of ordnance or technology or certain things not reaching who it needs to reach, and they've been re-examining all avenues, all areas of Department of War to see, in the defense industrial base, to see, okay, what's the holdup? Why aren't we getting what we need? How can we get these things faster, et cetera, et cetera. And right now, it's easy to point a finger at something that has been talked about for years of creating regulatory burden on small business. And here's where we are. So Nick posted this in the chat. So and I just wanted to reference this here, that they, per the review, a part of the pause, they've issued an RFI seeking industry feedback. So you can go right now and you can submit a comment on, to the, submit your company's or your personal response to talking about the reforming CMMC, what maybe you'd like to see change. Now is your chance to provide meaningful feedback. Again, they had this through rulemaking, and was codified into law, and all of the responses from the previous iterations of the DoD were, we don't care, sucks, we're doing it anyway, we need to secure data, we need to secure information, et cetera, et cetera. Now they've done this, they've suspended, and they said, hey, well, we want to hear from you again. So it opened it up on yesterday, July 13th. On per the SAM.gov website, the response date, which I believe is the cutoff, is August 14th, right? So there's 30 days, and then they're supposed to get, within 60 days, supposed to summarize and combine and add notes to the comments and provide that to the Department of War CIO. So that's kind of their deadline. So that takes us into September to know more concretely, hey, what's going on. So this is available now. You can go now and put this. So just to bring up from, yeah, okay, thank you, Corey. So this is a memo that came out yesterday as well. So the previous thing I was talking about was the was the release, kind of the news bulletin. This was more of a formal memo. And to my point earlier, talking about suspension of, so due to the suspension of phase 2 implementation, the ability for program managers and requiring activities to select any CMMC requirements that would require L2C through PAO. Good, nice. There's a typo in it. Or CMMC level 3 DIPCAC. No waivers shall be granted during the review of the program. Let's see. Further guidance will be provided later. Comment real quick here. Seems strange they're planning for a 60-day review. Why pause it since we have almost double that time until November 10th? Yeah, it's what they're planning to do. Again, I only have what we've been provided. So I guess I'll hang out on this page, see if there's any more dialogue. But if I had more time, and I know this has been talked about, and other members of the industry, is technically when it comes to issued certs that have happened through the process, they're ahead of the estimations provided within the different rules or the targets addressed within the different phased approaches. Were technically well ahead of what they imagined to happen per the marketplace, per the industry. And there also has been an increase of C3PAOs and subsequent assessors performing under those C3PAOs and the different assessments that have performed and the certs that have been issued. Now, again, going into the kind of the opinion area here, this isn't anything formal, but a lot of people have talked about where the bottleneck isn't the availability of C3PAOs, it's the readiness of the DIB, right? And coming to November 10th and starting to institute and require C3PAO certed requirements in the contracts. Potentially, the worry was that, well, certain critical DIB providers or producers would not be able to meet and would not be able to bid, and they wouldn't be able to get ordnance and technologies and whatever they need to continue to replenish stockpiles or expand. All right, so that there's been a lot of chatter about the why of this is happening now, or why that there is a kind of deviation here from the past 15 years of multiple administrations and different rotating people within DoD, and now this sudden change. There's going to be subsequent podcasts and videos and presentations and whatever else comes out. We're barely 24 hours in. There's a lot, or it could be Josh commented. Different people rotated out recently or the past few months. There's new people in, and they might want to put their mark on things. They might say, hey, you know what? I don't particularly like this. It's not my program. Here's what I think we should do, or here's a change to the program. And that happens all the time. The biggest thing that I don't think that anyone will be able to get back is confidence. From the defense industrial base, and that's that's a shame, because we want, obviously, people, there's a lot of people pursuing cybersecurity posture and maturity because they want to, or they see it as an advantage for their company. Others need to be required to do it, and that's just how it is. So however the carrot and stick works out moving forward needs to be seen. When it comes to the FAR CUI rule, because as talks have gone by year over year, where's the FAR rule? What about the other agencies that handle important data? DHS, NASA, DOJ, Department of Treasury, Department of Interior, all the other agencies. What about the data that they handle? Well, a lot of people saw DOD as running through the wall first, getting bloody, figuring it out, and then everyone else following suit. And here we have a suspension of the next phase. So they haven't figured it out yet. So the FAR CY rule, here's what we do know. The FAR Council published a proposed rule as part of its broader federal acquisition regulation overhaul earlier this year. That was also why there was number changes to the DFARs and the whole kind of subsequent streamlining or changes to all the different rules and numbering and what have you. So there's 4 main points under the FAR CY rule. It standardized. They wanted to standardize data protection across all civilian federal agencies by, number 1, consolidating information security under new FAR Part 40. 2, mandating compliance with NIST 800-171 Rev 3. So I'm going to put a pin in that, bring that up in a minute. 3, require a strict baseline of FedRAMP moderate for cloud systems. And 4, enforce a mandatory flow-down requirement to all tiers of subcontractors. Sort of sound familiar? Like with the DFAR 7012 and 7008, flow-down requirements. Wherever the data goes, the requirements go. Now, going back to the second bullet point, NIST Rev 3. There's also been chatter, again, opinion, conjecture, that the fact that the FAR is going to be coming out and is pointing to Rev 3, and DOD was pushing forward CMMC, which was tied to Rev 2, going to the point where, what was it, 1-2 years ago? It's all blending together for me, where they came out with the deviation that said, hey, Rev 3 is out and finalized for NIST, but we're pegging the requirements to Rev 2. Could it be a interagency coordinated move to have a delay and then try to have Rev 3 for everybody across the board, so that contractors who perform under DOW but also have other agency contracts don't have divergent requirements? Who knows? There's again a lot of talk about that. So none of this is affected by the pause of the rollout of CMMC because it has nothing to do. It's a FAR rather than a DFARS. And currently, comments on the proposed rule, which is still in proposal standpoint, are due by July 23rd. So there's still time for you to submit directly on the Federal Register your comments of the proposed rule for FAR, if that applies to you. So let's see. I just want to make sure I am tracking questions. Do you think this review will actually reduce the compliance burden for small businesses, or will it mainly change how compliance is validated and audited? That is it's a loaded question. It's a good question, and I can tell you I do not know at this point from an official standpoint. In terms of what I think, they continuously always, and this is my personal opinion, they always parade around talking about small business, talking about reducing, talking about this and that, and then they keep adding more red tape and more burden to small business. There's been a lot of chatter from the SBA. There was an opinion by Dan Akridge of Summit 7 saying, well, maybe the SBA, there was a carve out for $50 million for small businesses to access to help with the CMMC process. I think it was the validation process. But maybe they put a suspension in to say, hey, maybe they want to earmark more money for SBA for CMMC. So it could be a dollars thing. It could be mainly how they change compliance is validated and audited. Potentially, maybe they want to revisit the number of contracts or the types of contracts that have this a validation mechanism. There's been talks for years and years and years about the actual lever that they should, initiate or flip is actually revisiting how CUI is marked and distributed, right? That potentially, hey, those contract, if the requirements follow the data, then perhaps the data should be limited or changed or the market or distributed differently down to certain subs so that they don't even get that data and then therefore don't have the requirement. But then they say that, and then of course when it comes to the actual contract officers and the primes, well, they don't want nuance. They just want everyone to be the same, um, same level of risk and tolerance and etc., so that they just can send the data and not worry about it, and just make sure that their risk is buttoned up. So I'm not sure. I think the review is to. I know over the years that in terms of the DFARS rulemaking process, there's been comment periods and there's been feedback and there's been this and that, but ultimately they answered all those questions and they said still going on with what we're doing, and passed and got it through Congress and got it put into law. Perhaps this review is to have more of a collaboration between different agencies like the SBA, other agencies, to interact with the Department of War to say, hey, your ham-fisted approach to this is causing innovation and companies to bow out of the DIB when we need them more than ever. So I would hope that there is a response or more of a nuance or perhaps more of a timeline shift. Maybe they'll go, you know what, CUI basic, CUI specified in ITAR, absolutely. Those don't change, And I will say that the response, especially with the clients that we have, there are people that build components, warheads on foreheads. There are companies that, without a question of a doubt, are handling very important data, very when it comes to warfare, it gives us a competitive edge. They're handling that data, and no matter what, they're going to keep making sure that they are meeting the highest standard to protect that data. There are other companies that we work with or talk to that say, I don't even know if I even get this. No one could give me a straight answer. However, I do know that I'm getting pressure from upstream that says, tough, you have to do it anyway. If we in the future need to send you this data, we don't want to worry about it. So, you're a 15-person machine shop that makes brackets that don't have any markings on them that go in commercial systems. You still need this anyway. Hopefully, this will streamline and remove doubt about that for those types of companies to say, oh, good, I can just keep doing things as per usual, but I don't need to. And I do have good cyber in place. I don't need to go and change anything, or rather open up the checkbook and have to do a $50,000 audit or change how I'm doing certain things. That's going to add tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend per year to my bottom line. So I'm not sure. We need to see. We've never done this before. This is new for everybody. So there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of discussion. There's going to be a lot of talks over time about what this actually means. So let's just review a couple of the chat. I want to make sure we're having a good dialogue. I know people are talking amongst themselves. So let's see. Sean added me here. Biggest elephant in the room is that CMMC Reform Task Force is most likely not going to stay 60 days over. Deadline is today. What was due November 1st? No, in November, I think that means things will happen Jan 1st, likely a 4 or 5 delay. My opinion, yeah. Fortunately, yeah, John, as a comment, I tell people, hey, did you know that Real ID was required in 2005? And they don't like to hear that. And to Martin's point, yeah, I think that when it comes to, I'm just going to jump to the end here real quick. When it comes to CMMC, I think that unfortunately, right or wrong, it's being pointed to as a scapegoat that currently has, again, this is opinion, currently has nothing to do with the delays and the strain and the honestly the panic happening at the highest levels of why can we not get X in our hands and get it to our our warfighters right now. So I think that across the board, anything that is rightfully or perceived as burden or red tape is probably going to be paused until they get the outcomes that they need. Now, of course, no one is saying right that hey, a lot of the burden instituted by the commercial sector, by the primes themselves, by the requirements or the the net terms or the way that they do procurement. The procurement process hasn't been touched, and just from chatter from industry, that is the biggest dial that can be turned to help with procurement. But again, kind of going back to the question about SBA or about, hey, this review, how's it going to help? Unclear, because CMMC is one of dozens or hundreds of flow downs that the average DIB company has to meet. So maybe they're doing a full review of everything. Maybe they're trying to just say, hey, how can we expedite everything right now to get to where we need to be as a fighting force? So, there's a lot of macro things at play right now. I don't know how much that has impacted, or if is this one of the things that was very interesting was the evident coordinated response by the DoD CIO and again, forgive me, someone at the SBA having very similar videos of declarations of, well, we've done this thing and here's why, and small business, and a bunch of different things that sound good. And then also from the SBA, we applaud the DOW doing this and that, and listening to us, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's been a coordinated media campaign. There's been coordinated statements. So I haven't seen that before. So it seems like they've been sitting on this or thinking about this, for longer than, a week. Right. But interesting why they're doing it now, why they didn't do it sooner, why they didn't, potentially even wait to November 10th and say, hey, less contracts are getting this than we anticipated, or actually we're going to put a stay, a delay in the phased rollout because there's some things we want to work through. No, they came out in this fashion to address it. Again, killing confidence in the program, killing confidence of companies that have gone and scheduled assessments or gone through assessments. I know several people that have got it last year or as soon as possible. And they're kind of thinking, well, next time around, maybe I'll just self-cert, keep up the rigor internally, but not have to go through the process. So this whole discussion today was purely from the opinion, from the viewpoint of how does this impact organizations seeking certification, or companies within the DIB who are going to get these certs. I haven't even talked about Cyber AB, CTPAOs. That's a whole other discussion. So I think I just want to make sure we shared the, again, I don't want to I try to label things as opinion to try to make sure this is official, and the particular news and what we know in this presentation. Anything that I had is supported by the memo, or the um, the release, or there's also been a couple videos that have been released by the DoD-CIO. There's a couple new web pages to certain new resources by the DoD-CIO, or Department of War CIO. So I've been trying to be as accurate and straightforward as possible. Much to Kathikian's a point of, maybe they're going to change what audit ready means, or what right looks like. There's also been cuts of funds across different agencies, or priority changes, and what have you. So I guess the biggest thing, or the biggest emphatic is stay the course on phase 1 requirements and SPRS, and self-certifying to CMMC. Those are still all required, and you can still, of course, get DIBCAC assessed, and you can still, based upon your SPRS score and your posture, you can still be pursued by Department of Justice for False Claims Act through their whistleblower program. So those are all the same. So I know a lot of people said, oh, the clocks have been turned back to 2017. Well, they've been turned back to 2021. So the last 5 years just poof, just have been we'll see what happens. Tracking the rules, tracking when they come out, tracking comments, tracking initiatives and motivations and all that. So we're still doing that. In terms of any information on the NeQter Labs software release, no new date. I know we're halfway through July. We was hoping for a July release. No new date on that specifically. When I know more, I will share it. We're still in testing. We're still, when it comes to NeQter version 3, there's been a couple added enhancements that we decided to shoehorn in. We're trying not to have scope creep, but there's just been certain things that have either recently cropped up, or upon review of our GitHub of feature requests of it would be better for us to include this now than later. So a lot of that types of discussions have happened, and have pushed the envelope a little bit on the release. So I was planning to talk about that today, but things changed with this what got dropped on our lap yesterday. I will again, I don't have anything formal from that. I can reach out directly, and then of course we'll probably still keep the August the town hall as the first Tuesday, rather than we push this a week because of the 4th of July holiday. I'm glad that we did, because this is a huge thing to talk about. So we'll still be on pace for next month. So just in a couple weeks. So obviously, if there's anything between, I'll No more. Yeah, I think in terms of the kind of what the final release looks like and timeline for version 3 is going to be best at the August town hall. So for everyone asking about that, the brainwaves have been entirely taken up by this whole this whole ordeal with phase 2. So again, this at the very top, could we actually, is there an ability, Corey, for us to, I'm trying to think of if there's a particular file app, or we can also send it out in an email, Corey, the PDF of the of the doc, if anyone wants this, if anyone wants this presentation to use internally or to reference, we're going to provide it. In terms of community support channel, NeQter Discord, that has been discussed in the past. Actually, at least stood it up and have the namespace, but haven't followed through with that. But we have talked about a community support channel. Now that we have a little bit more bandwidth internally, I think that we can pursue that more actively. Prior, it was the responsibility fell to me, and I have a bunch of bunch of stuff to tackle on my plate already. So I didn't want to launch something that couldn't put my full time and attention to. I think that we can do that in future. So we'll know more about that. We'll let you know as that gets formalized. In terms of everything else, I believe I answered everyone's question. In terms of everything else in the chat, I believe it's more people commenting to each other rather than commenting to me. So I just want to make sure that everything was covered. Filled the full hour today. And I'm going to just double check that the materials that we provided included everything that I stated as fact. And if there's any other materials that we need to add, I'll get the links to them and we'll share them. So we'll definitely go back to your question, Robert, and make sure that it was either answered here, answered in the chat, or if there was an additional reference point, include that and send that out. So no, we've reached our 2 p.m. Don't want to hold anyone hostage more than I already have, but definitely appreciated everyone's time today, everyone's question. Hopefully I alleviated some stress, didn't hopefully not added to stress. It's been a hell of a year this week already. So appreciate everyone's time. Catch you on August 4th at 1 p.m. And we'll close this out. This will get posted on our YouTube as per usual, and we'll send out an email summary for everybody. So thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.